Yes, we are here. After over 20 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we finally have the big conclusion for our original characters in Avengers Endgame. Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring my review and give my thoughts on Avengers Endgame, which just came out about a day ago for its big release. Although people have been getting screenings all week and such, but it just got its big release on the 26th the other day. I went and seen it before work. Of course, was very eager, like most of the world's population are. But yeah, I seen it before work, and you guys got to know I haven't done enough sort of comic book movie related videos on my channel. But of course, I reviewed Infinity War last year, and movies periodically throughout. But I've always enjoyed the Marvel films, since they started with Iron Man, and I've always loved both Marvel and DC since I was just a little kid. So I've been highly invested in where everything is going to go for a long time, along with everyone else. I remember seeing the first Iron Man in theaters, and when it came out. So I was eager, and my expectations were, pretty high, which I think is understandable. But besides that, I knew it's just too big a movie, even though it's 3 hours long. I also knew I wasn't going to get necessarily everything I wanted. I knew that it's impossible for the Russo brothers or anyone else that worked on the movie to meet every single personal expectation or desire that a fan has. But overall, I do have some gripes with it, which I'll get into more on the spoiler side of things, which I will do once I rate the film. Then we'll go into more sort of direct thoughts on certain things that took place in the movie, or how certain things were done. I do have my issues with it, which I wasn't really prepared for. But overall, I thought Avengers Endgame was very good. The end is absolutely incredible. It's really worth it. It got me emotional. I admit I cried at the end. So it got me. I see some people saying they were bored by the movie, that 3 hours is too much, it was too long, different things of that nature. I actually really appreciated the approach they took with Endgame here. It's definitely more of a, you could say slow burn if you want to, but it takes its time. It's very sort of stuck to that Tony left it off in Infinity War, which I think makes sense. They've lost at least a majority of people, and you really feel the weight of that on our remaining heroes here. So it's a very mature look at it. Just Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson probably gives her best acting performance we've seen in Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, mostly just because it's honestly probably the most material she's been given. And I'll talk more about Black Widow a bit later, along with some others. But yeah, overall, I did like its approach to it, and like those many other people did say, by the second hour, that last hour, maybe that last hour and 15 or something, it's very intense, very engaging. There's another, of course, it's not a spoiler, there's another great battle that's just shot really well. There's so much going on screen. It's very visually pleasing. All CGI is very good in this movie. I didn't really see any issues, noticeably anyway. And all the characters in general get their moments in the sun. Infinity War is definitely more Thanos concentrated, and he still does get his beats in this movie that still keep him by far the greatest villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and one of the greatest comic movie villains of all time, if not the greatest. But this one's definitely more concentrated on a team, which I think makes sense. Captain America also gets a lot more sort of perspective in this, as well as, of course, Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark. But yeah, Chris Evans here is very good as Steve Rogers. It's a really great tie-up for him, however it goes. because he's our first Avenger, right? And they make sure to give him a arc that really really pays off nicely, and it's very very exciting. So yeah, he is very good. He does shave in this. I didn't mind his beard, but clean shaven is a little more Cap like as we know him in the movies. Robert Downey Jr. though, I have to commend him. He probably gave my favorite performance of the entire movie. I've always really liked Iron Man. He's never been my absolute favorite, but Robert Downey Jr. has just done such a good job playing him over the years, from his sarcasm to his own alcohol issues, but how much he cares about Peter and different things, and he's actually been self-sacrificial quite a number of times. So he's not quite as selfish as some people take him as, or how he might present himself on certain occasions. But he's very good here. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, who is still probably my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe character. I've always loved Chris Hemsworth's performance as Thor. Before the first Thor movie years ago, I knew of Thor. I liked him all right. But Hemsworth is what really got me to love the character, and he's what made me take more interest in the character. And he was given such great material in Infinity War, from what happened to Loki to him getting an axe into Thanos' chest. Full power Thor is just awesome. I didn't care as much for what they did with his character in this movie. Minus a couple things which I actually thought were pretty good. There's just a certain direction that they have him in general throughout the movie that I think was a bit dragged out, and I feel like he could have gotten some more moments like he did in Infinity War. So I felt a bit disconnected on that end. As far as issues I have with another standout character, I'd have to say I also didn't care for how they handled Bruce Banner, or particularly the Hulk himself. There's a lot of people wondering what they're going to do with him and Banner's struggle in Infinity War, Hulk not coming out and such. I didn't care for what they did with that either, which I was kind of disappointed by, because the Incredible Hulk has been one of my very favorite comic book characters since I was a small child. Ever since I was a little kid, my favorites were always Batman, Hulk, and over time it turned into Batman, Hulk, and the Punisher, Batman, Hulk, Punisher, and Spider-Man, things like that. So I was a bit let down by what they did, or lack thereof, what they did with them in this movie, which I'll talk more about in the spoiler side of things as soon as I rate the movie. There's something that they do with them, which it's not a spoiler, but it's funny for a bit. But you're expecting, okay, let's move on and actually have them, do something like that now, because it's, the final Avengers movie, but they don't. And we're kind of left with that last taste in our mouths of the MCU Hulk, which really bothered me, actually. And it's probably why, at least part of why I don't rate the movie even higher than I already am. But yeah, so, that sounds like a gripe, but when the Hulk has meant so much to me for so long, like, that is something I was most excited for in the movie, so I almost took it personally. I don't know. Now, the last specific character I want to talk a little bit more about than the others would probably be Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, Brie Larson. Now, I liked Captain Marvel all right. I wasn't blown away. It's sort of like in the middle as far as my favorite MCU films. I did like more than certain sequels on other characters' side of things, though, and I liked more of the Black Panther recently. But I had my issues with the character herself, because I feel like they're kind of unclear with exactly how powerful she is. Instead, we get Kevin Feige, Brie Larson, or what have you, telling us she's the most powerful, but we haven't actually seen examples of her doing things that are more incredible than what Thor has done or what Thor has been through. They're just sort of telling us she is without really showing us. And I still don't really believe she is after watching this movie. She gets some good moments, but I feel like she's still being a bit forced in, at least at the point she is. But luckily, as far as this movie goes, she doesn't actually... I was a bit worried that she's just going to come in, beat Thanos and be sort of that Superman character. Not really. They balanced it out more and pay more respect to the characters who've been following for over a decade, luckily. But, I'm warming up to her a bit more. I'm willing to see where it goes in the Captain Marvel sequel. So that's my feelings on her in this movie. And as far as the other characters, which we'll kind of skim over a little bit more briefly here, like I said, Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow probably gives her best we've ever seen in the franchise. Jeremy Renner, yeah, I gotta talk about Hawkeye. He's involved in a pretty important scene in the opening of the film. I liked his direction. This movie made him feel a bit more crucial than prior. I gotta talk about Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I was really happy with the performance he gave in this movie too. His character is given a certain amount of depth that the other characters are getting, and I really enjoyed him. Nebula, kind of same with her. Denai Guerrera, I can't pronounce the character's name, but I liked her place too. And of course, you gotta talk about Thanos himself, because Josh Brolin, like I said, the greatest MCU villain by far, maybe the greatest comic book movie villain of all time. Not as much attention in this movie, but he still gets some moments, especially in the most crucial of them, which we might talk about in the spoiler section. Scarlet Witch, I also want to mention in particular. She gets a really standout moment with Thanos here that was just absolutely awesome. It's not a direct spoiler, you'd hope she'd get some kind of moment, either way. I was really happy with what they gave for her to do in this movie. Both Peter Parker and Black Panther aren't in the movie a whole lot, but they're involved in some important moments. And again, that's not a spoiler. We know Black Panther 2 has been announced. We know that Far From Home is coming in just a couple months. So, not a spoiler, guys. They did that to themselves, and they don't seem to mind. Anyway. So, overall, besides the Hulk thing, which I talked about in general, my other issue with the movie was probably, I don't know if I want to say the runtime. I know I brought that up earlier. It was 3 hours long. I do think it could have gotten away with being like 2 hours and 40, maybe 2:45. Or it could have just been like 2.5 hours like Infinity War was. I think it would have been just as good. Potentially. I mean, I appreciate sort of the slow, character-focused style. I really like that. I didn't need the action right off the bat. But it does feel like the first hour especially is a bit stretched. Like they take a little bit more time with it than they necessarily would have on any other movie. So it did feel a bit padded here for some reason. It felt like we were retreading, some certain things here and just sort of spacing it out a bit. I don't know. But still, I appreciate its approach to it in general. And if it was this or cutting it down to like 2 hours or something, I would definitely take this. But I feel like there's a middle ground here that kind of just went over. But yeah, overall, Avengers Endgame was just a very, very good and in the end very satisfying conclusion to these characters we've cared about for so long for the most part, with a really memorable and emotional ending that I won't be forgetting. So yeah, it meant a lot to me. So yeah, overall, I'm still a bit conflicted. I only seen it the other day, so I'm still kind of thinking about it. But overall, it'd be between about a B plus 88% or an A minus 91%. Like I said, still kind of debating. I did have issues with the Hulk and certain other ways of the film. But overall, I think it's a very, very good one. And people should be pretty happy if you've been a fan all this time. Now, to some more direct spoilers I wanted to talk about. Since we were talking about the Hulk thing, we basically get spoilers, spoiler warning, if you guys didn't already understand. But yeah, we basically get Professor Hulk in this movie. Now, like I said, I've been a Hulk fan all my life. He's always been one of my all-time favorites. I've never honestly cared for the Professor Hulk version. It was a fun gimmick in the movie, for a little bit. But come on, it's the last Avengers movie. What kind of Hulk do you think we want to see here? He didn't need to be Professor Hulk for the whole thing. Again, spoilers, once Black Widow died, I was kind of hoping that would make him snap and then he'd sort of go kind of more savage Hulk-like again, because he's like halfway now. He's not as big or as strong or as angry as the regular Hulk, but he still has some of it within him, but he really can't do what Hulk is in regular Hulk mode can. But yeah, I'm disappointed as a major fan of the Hulk all these years that we didn't really get sort of like one last sort of decimation. We didn't get to see him fight Thanos again, maybe get like a couple good hits in that actually, help do him in or something. Or it would have been at least great to see him just go crazy and sort of just start plowing through a bunch of the army in the final battle. But we don't really get that. In fact, I don't even remember Professor Hulk doing really much of anything in that final battle. So that was definitely disappointing. Like, how would they not think or want to do something like that for the Incredible fucking Hulk in the last Avengers movie? I am not sure. Now, Thor, my favorite MCU character, just because they've been, sort of inconsistent, sort of nerfed with the Hulk. I've always loved how they've handled Thor and how they've built him up, especially into Infinity War and everything. They sort of make a joke out of him too. That's again, the Hulk was basically used for comic relief, and it got tiresome. And Thor kind of is too. It's funny for a bit, he's. What I did like though is that we got to see him kill Thanos at the beginning of the movie, decapitation. So he got that moment at least, and it felt like a nice tie up there. So there's that. But after that, they find him and he's drunk. He has a gut, which again is kind of funny. I did laugh at certain parts of that, but it's kind of like an all movie thing, and they don't really do much more with him besides that. Although he does have some good struggles with Thanos, and the Russos and others have said Thor's power is kind of linked to his mental state, like when Odin motivated him at the end of Thor Ragnarok, or how determined he was in Infinity War. He was like godlike, unstoppable, In this, he's depressed. He's sort of like lost in his own mind through everything he's been through. So thus, he's not as powerful, and thus couldn't do everything Captain Marvel did conveniently, and he struggled more, whereas if it was Infinity War Thor or something, he probably would have, but yeah, I feel like he got dragged out a bit. It was good seeing his mother, some good acting there, even though they kind of did undercut some of that with humor, which, is kind of an annoying trope in the MCU movies at times. Not as big of an issue with him as I had with the Hulk, but still, I think they could have given him more, especially after all his personal losses. Don't really have any issue with Captain America in this movie. I thought they handled him pretty beautifully, along with Iron Man, Tony Stark. Cap's ending, well, before we talk about that, he got to wield Mjolnir. I probably just butchered the hammer's name, but he is worthy. I knew it, says Thor, and that was great. It looks great visually when Cap was able to unleash that against Thanos and, some of his army. That was really cool. Tying back to that tease in Age of Ultron, before he sort of made it, move a bit. That was great. And his ending, he survives. A lot of people were actually expecting Captain America to die in this one, but he survives. But he goes to return the Infinity Stones throughout time, but he decides to stay there, marry Peggy, and that was a very fitting end and conclusion for the character, I thought. We see him give the shield to Falcon, which I thought was weird. They want to give it to Bucky instead. I'm not sure why they went with that. But they showed Bucky, being all right with it and stuff. But still, a very fitting end for the character. He never felt like he belonged. He never wanted to be there. Besides realizing he had to, protect everything and sort of be there for the time. But he never wanted to sort of live in our current time anymore. He was very, an old soul, and he is alone. So I thought that was a really good and fitting choice for the character. Stark, he actually ends up sacrificing himself. Doctor Strange kept telling him there's just that one, 14 million chances or whatever. You can't directly tell him what it is or else it won't work, but he holds up his finger at that precise moment. Stark grabs the stones, and he ends up snapping everything out, including Thanos. I am Iron Man, sort of throwing that throwback to him basically coming out with his identity as Iron Man at the end of the first film, so many years back now. But of course, it damages him. Professor Hulk survived it earlier in the movie, but he couldn't because he is only human, as brilliant and capable as he is. But that's the scene that got me crying. We see Spider-Man a little bit, telling Tony, "We won, Mr. Stark, we won." You get Pepper Potts. I've never been big at Gwyneth Paltrow, but she did pretty well here with Robert Downey Jr., who is just incredible. No major music playing in the movie. And I thought that was a testament to the acting from Robert Downey Jr. especially. And you see the light eventually leave his eyes as Pepper tells him to just he can rest now, and the funeral, was very, very nicely done as well, along with seeing the kid from Iron Man 3 growing up, which I thought was a nice touch. We see Fury there, even William Hurt, General Ross and stuff. Just very, very good. And, the Hulk thing was definitely a big issue for me, but how it ended and just how emotionally resonant it was with Iron Man really, really, I don't want to say saved because I didn't hate it, but it definitely sort of made and kept the movie as great as it was and could have been for me. So I was very happy with Iron Man's arc, and it really, really bookends Tony Stark very, very well, in my opinion. And Thanos, like I say, he didn't get as much time as Infinity War. It's not really exploring him. But there's this line he has before Thor decapitates him at the beginning, where he tells Nebula maybe he treated her too harshly. So there's always that nuance with Thanos that really makes him so much better than all the other Marvel villains. And then even when he knows he loses here after Iron Man snaps his fingers, you sort of get that moment with him where he just sort of sits down and accepts it and sort of just revels in his own failure and the meanings and reasoning of all that. So I thought that was again very good from Josh Brolin. We don't really get Loki back, I think. I've seen some people saying because he got the Tesseract in one of the time travel flashbacks that maybe it slipped through and now he'll be alive in the present. I hope not. There's a whole streaming service thing coming, but for me, Loki's still dead. But it was still good to see the travel back to the first Avengers movie and everything. It was quite fun. The Dark World and stuff. It was funny. The only moment we got with like the real Hulk in the movie was flashing back in time to the first Avengers, and we could see him having issues with the stairs and just going fucking crazy on one of the Chitauri with the car. That was awesome. So I thought that was pretty fun. And so besides that, I'm sure there's more moments I'm for some reason not thinking of in the movie. Black Widow's death, I thought was sort of out of nowhere. It just sort of happens. Her and Hawkeye do the whole Soul Stone thing. Jerry Renner is very good here as well. I've been commending Johansson, but Renner was good here. They're basically fighting each other to see who's gonna give their lives. But Black Widow ends up dropping, and Renner's acting and sort of pain seeing that happen to Natasha is very, very well portrayed as well. A bit surprising, she is one of the most vulnerable members of the Avengers. Realistically, she should have been killed in a battle a long time ago, as trained and skilled as she is. But here I thought it was pretty good for what it was. I feel like there wasn't really as much given to it as there maybe could have been. But they did set her up nicely in the beginning of the movie. Her just sitting around the headquarters, I thought was a pretty good character bit. And as well as Nebula, doing the whole other version of her thing as the past Thanos figured it out. It definitely brought a level of intensity and danger to the film again. I wouldn't say that aspect of it was quite as good as it was in Infinity War. As far as like the danger of it all and the intensity, I didn't feel that quite as much until the very last part of it. So the pacing I thought was a bit, again, kind of stretched out, but it is what it is with that. Overall, I just think Endgame was a very, very great experience, and I am overall happy, very happy with my feelings after the movie ended. Again, just the Hulk thing feels like a very obvious missed opportunity and certain other things that I didn't care for as much as others. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about it. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like, subscribe, and again, if there's any other part of Endgame you want to talk about, comment below. Mark it with spoilers, though, just in case anyone happens to randomly click on my video that hasn't watched it yet. So yeah, catch you guys next time. Peace.